The air on the parade ground at Forward Operating Base Sentinel was thick with dust and ceremony. It tasted of diesel fumes and baked earth, a flavor Master Chief Petty Officer Anya Sharma had long ago accepted as a condition of her work. She stood in the third rank, motionless, her small frame a study in stillness amidst the fidgeting of younger soldiers. Her Navy working uniform, crisp and utilitarian, was a dark blue island in a sea of desert camouflage. She was an anomaly, and she knew it. General Marcus Thorne, United States Army, stood at the podium, his voice a gravelly boom amplified by speakers that crackled in the dry heat. He was a man carved from a recruiting poster, all jawline and confidence, a four-star general who believed victory was a matter of volume. His speech was a predictable tapestry of valor, sacrifice, and the indomitable American spirit. Sharma listened to the cadence, not the words. She analyzed it like a signal, predictable modulation, high amplitude, low information density. Finally, the awards portion began. Names were called, citations read. Soldiers marched forward, received their medals with proud smiles, shook the general's hand for the waiting cameras, and returned to their places. Then, the announcer called her name. Master Chief Petty Officer Anya Sharma. She moved with an economy of motion that was often mistaken for hesitation. She walked to the center mark, halted, and executed a precise salute. General Thorne looked down at her, a flicker of something, confusion, perhaps disdain, in his eyes. He took the citation from his aide. Master Chief Petty Officer Sharma, he began, his voice losing some of its booming warmth, is awarded the Bronze Star Medal for meritorious service. For providing critical signals intelligence support during Operation Serpent's Coil, leading to the successful neutralization of a high-value enemy network. The language was sterile, bureaucratic. It was the only language cleared to describe what she did. It spoke of support and intelligence, words that to a man like Thorne sounded passive, secondary. He looked from the paper to her, then to the assembled task force and the embedded media pool. He saw a narrative opportunity. He put the citation down. In my day, he began, his voice adopting a folksy, condescending tone. Support meant you were miles from the wire, safe and sound. It meant you were pushing paper while real soldiers were pushing the fight. A few of his acolytes chuckled. Sharma's expression remained unchanged. Her eyes, dark and steady, were fixed on the middle distance, as protocol dictated. This operation was won by trigger pullers, Thorne declared, his voice rising. By the infantrymen who kicked in the doors. By the men whose boots were on the ground. He picked up the velvet box containing her medal. He opened it, looked at the bronze star glinting within, and then snapped it shut. The air went still. The low hum of the base generators seemed to fall silent. We reserve these for the warriors at the tip of the spear, Thorne said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial growl for the cameras. He unpinned the medal from its cushion inside the box and, in a gesture of profound public contempt, slipped it into the breast pocket of his own uniform. We'll find a more appropriate recipient for this. Someone who was actually in the fight. He looked directly at Sharma, a smug challenge in his eyes, expecting a reaction. A protest, tears, anger, anything to validate his dominance. He received nothing. Master Chief Sharma held her salute for one more perfect second. Then, she dropped it cleanly, performed a flawless about-face, and walked off the parade ground. She did not look back. The sound of her footsteps on the gravel was the only noise in a suddenly vast and uncomfortable silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing the rigid line of her back as she disappeared into the haze. Back in the sterile confines of her temporary quarters, a windowless containerized housing unit she shared with a bank of humming servers, Anya Sharma did not rage. She did not weep. She sat at her small steel desk and powered on her hardened laptop. The machine booted without a sound, its screen glowing in the dim light. She accessed the secure network and downloaded the official video feed from the ceremony. Her fingers moved with practiced speed across the keyboard, executing commands. She isolated the relevant segment. from the moment her name was called to the moment she exited the frame. She saved the high-definition clip to a triple encrypted solid-state drive. She then cross-referenced the media roster for the event, noting the names and affiliations of every journalist present. Associated Press, Reuters, Fox News, The New York Times. All witnesses. She opened a new file, a simple text document that served as her personal log. The cursor blinked on the empty screen. Date: October 23rd. Time: 14:37 Zulu. Location: FOB Sentinel, Parade Ground. Incident: Public Awards Ceremony. Presiding Officer: General M. Thorne, USA. Event: Recipient of Bronze Star Medal, citation for Operation Serpent's Coil. General Thorne publicly questioned the validity of the award, citing a distinction between combat and support roles. He retained the physical medal. Official video and media witnesses documented the event. Action taken: withdrew from ceremony. Filed this log. She saved the file. The entire process took less than 10 minutes. There was no emotion in the words, only facts. The facts were sufficient. The system she served was built on process and documentation. An emotional outburst was noise, easily dismissed. A documented procedural breach was a signal, clear and persistent. Could be ignored for a time, but it would remain in the logs, waiting. With the report filed, she felt a familiar need for pressure and silence. She changed into a plain black swimsuit and walked across the base to the combat diver training facility. It was a deep, cylindrical pool housed in a cavernous metal building, the water a cold, chlorinated blue. It was usually empty at this time of day. She stood at the edge, regulating her breath. In hold out. The air in the building was heavy with the scent of ozone and chlorine. She executed a simple feet-first entry, slicing into the water with minimal splash. The cold was a welcome shock, a sensory reset. She sank to the bottom, 20 feet down, and settled in a cross-legged position on the smooth concrete floor. The world above vanished. The harsh sunlight, the dust, the noise of the base. All of it was replaced by a deep, resonant silence, broken only by the sound of her own controlled breathing as she began a breath-hold drill. The pressure of the water was a uniform, comforting weight on her entire body. Here, there were no politics, no egos, no grandstanding generals. There were only the laws of physics, buoyancy, pressure, and the body's demand for oxygen. She was not a support person. She was a weapon system whose primary components were pattern recognition and an absolute mastery of the electromagnetic spectrum. General Thorne saw a small woman who worked with computers. He could not comprehend a battlefield measured in hertz and decibels, where a victory could be won by isolating a single packet timing anomaly in a terabyte of meaningless static. He could not imagine a fight that took place in the invisible space between antennas. His failure of imagination was not her problem. It was, however, now a documented fact. She surfaced, her lungs burning, her mind clear. She repeated the descent, the ritual of pressure and release washing away the last vestiges of the public humiliation. It was not an insult to her. It was a flaw in the general's understanding of modern warfare, and flaws in her world were liabilities to be corrected. She spent the next hour cleaning her rifle. It was not the standard issue M4 carbine. It was a specialized 338 Lapua Magnum, a tool for conversations held across a mile of intervening air. The weapon was a masterpiece of precision engineering, and she maintained it with a reverence some people reserved for prayer. She disassembled it on a clean mat, each component laid out in perfect order.
Bolt, furring pin, etchato.
She cleaned every surface, removing microscopic grains of dust with a soft cloth and a drop of oil. The smell of Hoppa's No. 9 was incense. The precise, mechanical clicks as she reassembled the weapon were a calming mantra. This, too, was a system governed by physics. Muzzle velocity, ballistic coefficient, spin drift, the Coriolis effect. There was no ego in a ballistics table. There was only truth. The provocation, when it came, was as clumsy and predictable as Thorne's ceremony speech. It happened 2 days later in the main dining facility. The cavernous room buzzed with the clatter of trays and the murmur of hundreds of conversations. Sharma sat alone at a small table in the corner, eating methodically, her focus on the field manual she was reading. Two army captains, fresh-faced and radiating the unearned confidence of their rank, approached her table. They were from General Thorne's personal staff. She recognized them from the ceremony. They moved with a proprietary swagger, their trays held like shields. The taller one, whose name tag read Royce, smirked down at her. Well, if it isn't Master Chief almost got a medal," he said, his voice loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. His companion, a shorter, broader man named Gable, snickered. Sharma did not look up from her book. She slowly turned a page. Royce's smirk tightened. Her lack of reaction was an irritant. "What's the matter, Chief? Cat got your tongue? Or are you just busy writing a strongly worded email about how your feelings were hurt?" "Leave her alone, Captain," a voice grumbled from a nearby table. It was a Marine gunnery sergeant, his face a roadmap of hard deployments. Sharma recognized him as Torres, a scout sniper instructor she had worked with on a joint training range years ago. Royce shot him a venomous look. "Mind your business, Gunny. This is an officer-to-enlisted conversation." He turned back to Sharma, his arrogance inflated by the minor challenge. "The general was right, you know. They hand out medals like candy these days. Dilutes the meaning for the real fighters." Sharma carefully placed her fork on her tray. She closed her book, marking her page. She still had not made eye contact with them. She prepared to stand and leave. Avoidance was the primary de-escalation tactic. Royce, misinterpreting her silence as weakness and her movement as flight, decided to escalate. He reached out and placed a heavy, condescending hand on her shoulder, intending to stop her from rising. "Hey, I'm not done talking to you, sailor." It was a tactical error of catastrophic proportions. The instant his fingers made contact, Sharma's entire posture shifted. She did not tense up. She seemed to flow. Her center of gravity dropped by inches. Her left hand came up, not to strike, but to gently cover his hand on her shoulder, her thumb pressing a precise point on the radial nerve at his wrist. Simultaneously, her body pivoted, not away from him, but into him, using his own forward momentum against him. Royce's forward push became an uncontrolled stumble. Sharma's other hand secured his elbow. It was not a punch or a grab. It was a simple, fluid redirection. His arm was now locked, bent at an angle evolution had never intended, his own body weight creating the strain. His confident smirk vanished, replaced by a mask of wide-eyed shock and sudden, blinding pain. He was completely off balance, his 6-foot frame held powerless by a woman half his size, all without a single blow being thrown. The entire sequence, from contact to control, had taken less than 2 seconds. The clatter in the dining facility died. Trays stopped moving. Conversations halted. Every eye was locked on the silent drama unfolding in the corner. Sharma applied a whisper of additional pressure to the joint lock. Royce let out a strangled gasp. She leaned in, her voice low and devoid of all emotion. It was not a threat. It was a statement of fact. "Do not touch me again." She released him as smoothly as she had taken control. Captain Royce staggered back, clutching his arm, his face a mixture of agony and utter humiliation. His partner, Gable, stood frozen, his mouth half open. Sharma calmly picked up her book. She picked up her tray. She looked at neither of them. She walked to the tray return window, deposited her dishes, and exited the dining facility without a backward glance. The room remained silent for a long moment. Then, a low murmur started, spreading like a ripple. In the corner, Gunnery Sergeant Torres slowly shook his head, a look of grim, profound respect on his weathered face. He had seen her shoot on the range, printing sub-minute of angle groups at 1,500 meters in a crosswind. He had always known she was more than she appeared. Now everyone else in the room knew it too. The narrative had begun to shift. The video from the multiple security cameras in the dining facility, and from at least a dozen personal cell phones that had started recording, was already being shared. The quiet Navy chief was no longer a victim. She was a mystery. Commander David Calloway, Sharma's nominal commanding officer in this joint task force assignment, rubbed his temples. The video was playing on a loop on his monitor. It was clear, undeniable, and a massive procedural headache. An army captain, a general's aide no less, had been publicly and efficiently dismantled by one of his master chiefs. "I have to file a report, Master Chief," he said, looking at Sharma, who stood at parade rest in front of his desk. Her expression was placid, unreadable. "Captain Royce has filed a formal complaint. Assault." "I understand, Commander," she said. Her voice was calm. "He claims you attacked him without provocation." "That is an inaccurate statement," she replied. "I know it is," Calloway said, gesturing at the screen. "I have eyes, but I have to follow procedure. I need your official statement." Sharma produced a small, gray data chip from her pocket and placed it on his desk. "My statement is on this drive, sir. It is a text file, time-stamped and digitally signed." Calloway picked it up, curious. "And what else is on here?" "The unedited source footage from the 3 dining facility security cameras covering the incident, synchronized into a single timeline. Audio recordings from 4 personal devices in the immediate vicinity, which I was able to isolate and enhance. Their metadata confirms they were actively recording. A topographical map of the dining facility indicating the positions of all parties and at least 15 witnesses, rank and names included. And a frame-by-frame analysis of the physical contact, demonstrating that Captain Royce initiated, and that my response utilized minimal force necessary to neutralize a perceived physical threat, consistent with established rules of engagement for personal defense. Calloway stared at the data chip in his hand. It was not a statement. It was a complete evidentiary package, assembled with the speed and ruthless efficiency of a counterintelligence operation. He was a decent officer, a man who believed in the system, but this level of preparation was something else entirely. He was beginning to understand that Master Chief Sharma did not simply exist within the system. She operated it like a finely tuned instrument. "All right, Master Chief," he said, a new note of respect in his voice. "I will attach this to my report and forward it up the chain. You are confined to quarters pending review." "Understood, Commander," she said. She saluted, turned, and left his office. Calloway watched her go. He plugged the drive into his computer. Everything she had described was there, perfectly organized. He read her statement. It was 3 sentences long, as precise and unadorned as a schematic. At 18:05 Zulu, Captain Royce and Captain Gable approached my table. Captain Royce made unsolicited verbal contact. He then initiated unsolicited physical contact. I responded with a standard joint control maneuver to ensure my safety and disengage. I then vacated the area. He attached the entire package to his report and sent it up the chain of command. It landed, as he knew it would, on the desk of Admiral Charles Evans, the overall theater commander. The inquiry was convened not in a dusty office but in the sterile, high-tech Strategic Operations Center aboard the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan, floating in the Arabian Sea. Admiral Evans presided, his presence filling the room with a quiet, pragmatic authority. General Thorne was there, flanked by his 2 aides, Royce and Gable. Thorne's face was a thundercloud. Being summoned by a Navy admiral to discuss the conduct of his staff was a deep insult to his ego. Commander Calloway was present, and so was Master Chief Sharma. She stood alone, a small, still figure in the center of the room. A large holographic map of the theater of operations floated in the air between them, currently inert. "Let's be brief," Admiral Evans began, his voice calm but edged with steel. "General, your aide, Captain Royce, has filed a complaint of assault against Master Chief Sharma. Captain, please state your case." Royce, his arm in a completely unnecessary sling for dramatic effect, recounted his version of events. He painted himself as the victim, claiming he had merely tried to have a friendly word with the Master Chief when she suddenly and viciously attacked him. Evans listened patiently. When Royce was finished, the Admiral nodded to a technician. "Play the dining facility footage. All angles." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the incident from 3 different perspectives simultaneously. The audio was crisp and clear. Royce's mocking words, his aggressive posture, his hand grabbing Sharma's shoulder. It was all there, undeniable. Then, the swift, economical, and perfectly controlled defensive maneuver. The video played. The room was silent. Royce's face turned a deep shade of crimson. "The video seems to contradict your statement, Captain," Evans said mildly. "It appears you initiated physical contact." Master Chief Sharma's response appears to be a textbook application of non-lethal force. "The complaint is dismissed." General Thorne started to speak, outrage coloring his features. "Admiral, this is an affront to my—" Evans held up a hand, and Thorne fell silent. "We are not finished, General. This incident did not occur in a vacuum. It is my understanding that it stems from your actions at the awards ceremony 2 days prior." He turned his gaze to Sharma. "Master Chief, I have read the citation for your Bronze Star. It is vague. For the record, I would like you to clarify your specific contribution to Operation Serpent's Coil." This was the moment. Sharma stepped forward. "Permission to use the tactical display, Admiral." "Granted." Sharma interfaced with the holographic projector via a datapad. The map of the operational area zoomed in on a dense urban sector. The objective of Serpent's Coil was the leader of the Alfar insurgent cell, a man known as the Ghost. He was notoriously difficult to track. His cell practiced extreme electronic emissions control. A complex web of colored lines and symbols flooded the hologram. "This is the electromagnetic spectrum of the target area for the 72 hours preceding the operation," she explained. Her voice was steady, the voice of a lecturer. "It is saturated with civilian traffic, military communications, and background noise. The enemy used a polymorphic, frequency-hopping communication system with encrypted burst transmissions, designed to be indistinguishable from this noise." She manipulated the display. Most of the colored lines vanished, leaving a shimmering haze of what looked like digital static. Standard analysis could find no pattern. The signals were designed to mimic random atmospheric phenomena. "However," she continued, "no system is perfect. Every piece of hardware has a unique physical signature. A flaw in a crystal oscillator, a microsecond delay in a power amplifier. These create a recurring error, a digital fingerprint, buried layers deep in the signal." Her fingers flew across the datapad. A single thread of light, impossibly faint, began to resolve within the static. It pulsed with a steady, rhythmic beat. "I designed a polymorphic decryption algorithm, but not for the content of the messages. It was designed to analyze the carrier wave itself, searching for this repeating hardware latency. A digital heartbeat. It took my system 48 hours to isolate it." The thread of light on the map solidified, leading to a single building in a crowded city block. I cross-referenced the signal's origin with thermal imaging from an RQ-170 Sentinel drone, which I had ret-asked to the area. The building showed a heat signature consistent with multiple occupants and a significant amount of electronic equipment in a sub-basement level. I passed this specific location, the single address, to the task force command at 241 Zulu. The assault force, led by Major Davies, was dispatched to that location. They met resistance, neutralized the targets, and captured the Ghost. They were sent to the objective based solely on the intelligence I provided. She finished, and the holographic display froze on the single building, the faint heartbeat still pulsing. The room was utterly silent. She had not raised her voice. She had presented no opinions. She had simply displayed the raw, unassailable data. She hadn't supported the raid. She had been its architect. She had pointed a finger through the digital fog and told the trigger pullers precisely where to go. General Thorne was pale. His entire narrative of heroic infantrymen finding the enemy through sheer grit had just been vaporized by a quiet woman and her ghost-like signals. He had built his reputation on being a muddy-boots general, and he had just been shown, in front of an admiral, that he was strategically illiterate in the modern age. Admiral Evans looked at Thorne. "General," he said, his voice cold as the deep sea. "Your after-action report, which I have right here, credits aggressive patrolling by Alpha Company for locating the target. That is not just an error. That is a fabrication. You have misrepresented a tactical operation to your superiors and to the public. You have also publicly humiliated a decorated senior non-commissioned officer and illegally confiscated her award." The Admiral's gaze was unwavering. "This inquiry is concluded. My report to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs will reflect these findings. For a 4-star general, this was a death sentence. His career was over." The next morning, the entire task force was assembled on the parade ground once more. The air was different. The heat and dust were the same, but the mood was somber, attentive. There was no media present. This was not for them. Admiral Evans stood at the podium. General Thorne was conspicuously absent. In any large organization, errors can be made. The Admiral began, his voice carrying across the silent ranks. Good organizations have the integrity to identify those errors and the courage to correct them. We are here today to correct an error. He called her name. Master Chief Petty Officer Anya Sharma. She walked forward, the same economical movements, the same perfect stillness. She halted before the Admiral and saluted. Admiral Evans held the Bronze Star Medal. It was the same one from 2 days before. He had made a point of retrieving it from General Thorne's possession personally. He did not read the citation again. Instead, he looked directly at Sharma. "Master Chief, on behalf of the United States Armed Forces, I apologize," he said, his voice clear and firm. "Your skill and your dedication saved American lives and ensured the success of a critical mission. We are honored by your service." He leaned forward and carefully pinned the medal to her uniform, just above her service ribbons. He then stepped back and rendered a slow, deliberate salute. For a moment he held it alone. Then, from the front rank, a single Marine gunnery sergeant, Torres, snapped his own hand up in a salute of razor-sharp precision. The sound of it seemed to break a spell. A wave of motion followed as every single soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine on that parade ground, thousands of them, raised their hands in salute to the small, quiet woman standing before them. It was a thunderous, silent roar of respect. Later that day, Sharma was on the long-distance rifle range, the place she went for solitude. The familiar weight of the .338 was a comfort. She was calculating windage and Coriolis drift for a 2,000-meter shot when a figure approached. It was Gunnery Sergeant Torres. He stopped a few feet away, not speaking for a long moment. He simply watched her make her calculations, respecting her process. "Master Chief," he finally said. She turned her head slightly, acknowledging him. Torres reached up and removed the patch from his uniform's shoulder pocket. It was the iconic emblem of a United States Marine Corps Scout sniper, a skull superimposed over a crosshair, with the words, "One shot, one kill." It was a symbol of extreme proficiency, an insignia of a brotherhood earned through immense hardship and skill. He held it out to her. "The guys at the schoolhouse, we heard what you did. Not in the DFAC, in the ether. Finding that needle in a haystack full of needles," he said. "That was the finest piece of marksmanship I've ever seen." Sharma looked at the patch, then at the man. She understood the depth of the gesture. It was the highest form of professional respect he could offer. She reached into her own pocket and retrieved a spare patch. It was a simple black circle. In the center was a stylized phoenix, its wings made of radio waves, rising from flames. Below it, embroidered in silver thread, was the Latin motto of her unit, Fides in Tenebris, faith in darkness. She took his patch and handed him hers. No other words were needed. The exchange was a treaty of mutual respect between two masters of their respective crafts. He nodded, tucked the phoenix patch away carefully, and left her to her solitude. The final scene of the drama unfolded back in the quiet, cool darkness of her workspace. The air hummed with the sound of fans and servers. The holographic map of the next operational area floated before her, a new and complex problem waiting to be unraveled. Commander Calloway entered, walking softly. He stood beside her for a moment, watching the streams of data flow across the display. "Master Chief," he began, his tone formal but now colored with a deep, newfound respect. "I just got off a secure video call with the Director of National Intelligence." He read Admiral Evans's report. He paused. "Your next assignment has been approved. It's Project Trident." Sharma's eyes remained on the map, but he saw a flicker of acknowledgement. Project Trident was the bleeding edge, a program so classified that most of the intelligence community only knew it as a rumor. "About what happened here," Calloway continued, feeling a need for closure. "With General Thorne, the ceremony. All of it. I'm sorry you had to go through that." Anya Sharma finally turned her head from the glowing tactical display. Her face was calm, illuminated by the shifting blue light of the hologram. There was no trace of vindication, no hint of triumph. There was only the quiet focus of a professional whose work was done and whose next task was already loading. "Correction was achieved," she said. Her gaze returned to the map. The room was quiet again, the culture a little better, the institution a little stronger. And in the invisible world of signals and shadows, the next mission was already beginning.